I had 30 minutes to decide whether to save him or save myself. Dominic Ravel was a man who made empires kneel and enemies disappear, but when he walked past his wife's bedroom that night with his shoulders carved in defeat, I knew something had broken inside him. Something irreparable. I was just a maid, invisible, silent, small. The kind of person powerful men look through, not at. But tucked inside my uniform pocket was a photograph that would destroy everything. His wife Margot, shaking hands with his biggest rival. Proof of the betrayal that was slowly killing him from the inside out. I could have stayed quiet. I could have let the monsters devour each other while I kept my head down and survived. That's what maids do. That's how we stay alive. But when Dominic Ravel appeared at my doorway at midnight with his hand pressed against the frame, and his eyes searching mine like I was the last solid thing in a crumbling world, silence stopped being an option. Because here's what neither of us knew yet. The choice I was about to make wouldn't just destroy his marriage. It would ignite a war. And the invisible black maid in the corner? She was about to become the most dangerous person in the room. This is what happened when 30 minutes became a lifetime. This is what happened when I stopped being invisible. The Ravel estate didn't breathe, it suffocated. I learned that my first week here, back when I still thought rich people's houses were supposed to feel like homes. Marble floors that echoed your footsteps back at you like accusations. Crystal chandeliers worth more than my mother's entire neighborhood. Rooms so vast you could scream, and no one would hear you 3 hallways away. But no warmth. No laughter. Just silence heavy enough to crush you. My name is Nia Carter. I'm 24 years old, 5'3" in my work flats, and I've been invisible my entire life. Growing up poor and black in a city that only sees you when it needs someone to blame taught me that skill early. But working for Dominic and Margot Ravel? That perfected it. I'm the woman who brings the coffee at 6 a.m. sharp, who refills water glasses during their silent dinners, who picks up Margot's dry cleaning and irons Dominic's shirts and knows exactly how both of them take their tea without ever being asked. I'm the witness to a marriage that died years ago, but refuses to be buried. Every morning, I set the breakfast table for 2. Dominic sits at one end reading financial reports, Margot at the other scrolling through her phone. They don't speak. Don't look at each other. The only sound is silverware against porcelain and the rustle of newspaper. Et pour coffee. I become invisible. Every evening, I serve dinner in the grand dining room with its long mahogany table that seats 20, but only holds 2. Dominic asks about Margot's day with the tone of a man fulfilling a contract. Margot answers in clipped sentences that could draw blood. Then silence again, thick and poisonous. I clear plates. I don't exist. But here's what they don't know. Invisible doesn't mean blind. I've seen Margot delete text messages the second Dominic enters a room. I've watched Dominic stand outside her bedroom door for 5 full minutes before knocking, bracing himself like a soldier heading into battle. I've heard her laugh, that cold, cruel sound, when he tries to touch her hand across the dinner table, and she pulls away like he's diseased. I've cleaned up the whiskey glass he leaves in his study every night. The only evidence that the untouchable Mafia boss is drowning. They perform their marriage like a business transaction. Margot gets the Ravel name, the mansion, the social status. Dominic gets an alliance with the Locke family's political connections. And both of them get to pretend they're not slowly killing each other with indifference. I'm just the help. I'm not supposed to care. But 2 years of watching Dominic Ravel, this powerful, dangerous man who makes grown men tremble, shrink a little smaller every time his wife looks through him like he's nothing? It does something to you. And tonight, when I watched him walk away from her bedroom with his head bowed and his armor finally cracking, I realized I'd stopped being just a witness. I'd become someone who wanted to do something about it, even if it destroyed us both. It happened at 11:30 p.m. I was in the west hallway carrying fresh linens to the guest rooms when I heard voices bleeding through Margot's bedroom door. Sharp. Venomous. I should have kept walking. Should have minded my business like every other servant who valued their life. But I recognized the lower voice immediately. Dominic rarely raised his tone. But tonight there was something underneath it. Something raw and desperate that made me freeze. I'm asking you as your husband, Margot. Not as a business partner. As the man you married. Her laugh cut through the door like a knife. The man I married? Dominic, you're barely a man at all. You're a ghost in an expensive suit playing at being powerful. Silence. Heavy and terrible. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. I know this marriage isn't what either of us wanted, Dominic said quietly. But we made vows. We built something together. We built nothing. Margot's voice was ice and contempt. Your family needed my family's connections. My family needed your money. That's all this has ever been. Did you actually think I could love you? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. I thought we could at least respect each other. Respect. She laughed again, crueler this time. You come to my door like a pathetic dog begging for scraps. You look at me with those desperate eyes like I owe you affection. It's revolting, Dominic. You're revolting. I heard footsteps. Stumbled back from the door. It swung open. Dominic stood there, his face a mask of control that was cracking at the edges. For one heartbeat, his eyes met mine. And I saw everything he was trying to hide. The humiliation. The loneliness. The pain of being unwanted by the one person who was supposed to stand beside him. Then the mask snapped back into place. He walked past me without a word, his footsteps echoing down the long hallway. Each step sounded heavier than the last, like a man carrying a weight that was finally crushing him. I watched him disappear into the shadows of the East Wing. Checked my watch. 11:30 p.m. In 30 minutes, my shift would end. In 30 minutes, I could go to my small room, lock the door, and pretend I hadn't just witnessed the most powerful man in the city be gutted by his own wife. Or I could do what I'd been too afraid to do for 3 days. The photograph in my pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. Margot and Vincent Cross. The rival who'd been systematically destroying Dominic's operations from the inside. The proof that would give Dominic the weapon he needed. The proof that would make me a target. I had 30 minutes to decide if I was brave enough, or stupid enough, to stop being invisible. The clock was ticking. I followed him. God help me. I followed him through the shadowed hallways of the estate, keeping enough distance that he wouldn't hear my footsteps but close enough to track his path. Every instinct I had screamed at me to turn back, to go to my room, to forget what I'd heard and what I knew. But watching him walk away from that bedroom, shoulders rigid, head slightly bowed, moving like a man who'd just been sentenced, broke something in me. Dominic Ravel didn't go to his study, didn't pour himself the whiskey I knew he kept in the crystal decanter, didn't retreat to any of the grand rooms where powerful men were supposed to lick their wounds in private. He walked to the servants' entrance, the narrow doorway that separated their world from ours, the threshold no one like him ever crossed. And he stopped. One hand came up, pressed flat against the wall beside the doorframe. His head dropped forward. Those broad shoulders, the ones that carried an empire built on fear and blood, curved inward like he was collapsing. I was 10 feet away, hidden in the shadows, watching the Mafia boss come undone. Then his head lifted. Those storm-gray eyes found mine across the dim hallway. I know you're there, Miss Carter. My breath caught. Every muscle in my body locked. You can come out. Or you can run. But either way, I know you saw. I stepped into the light. Slowly. My hands were trembling, so I clasped them in front of my apron, trying to look composed. Professional. Like my heart wasn't trying to beat out of my chest. I'm sorry, Mr. Ravel. I didn't mean to. Don't. His voice was rough. Raw. Don't apologize for existing in your own space. He pushed off the wall, and turned to face me fully. Even broken, even humiliated, there was something about him that commanded the air itself. 6'2" of controlled power in a suit that probably cost more than I made in a year. Dark hair slightly disheveled now. Jaw tight with restraint. But his eyes, God, his eyes looked like a man drowning. Why are you still here? He asked quietly. Your shift ended 5 minutes ago. I hadn't even noticed. It was 11:35 p.m. I was worried about you, sir. Something flickered across his face. Surprise maybe. Or pain. Worried. He took one step toward me. Then another. Each footfall deliberate and heavy. The help is worried about me. It should have sounded mocking. It should have put me in my place. Instead, it sounded like a man who couldn't remember the last time anyone had worried about him at all. He stopped just inches away, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath, see the exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, feel the heat radiating off him. His hand came up again, braced against the doorframe above my head, caging me in. You should be afraid of me, Nia. My name in his mouth sounded like a confession. I'm not a good man. I know what you are, Mr. Ravel. Then why aren't you running? Because I'm tired of running, I thought. Because you look the way I feel. Because the photograph in my pocket is either going to save you or kill us both, and I need to decide right now. Because, I whispered, I'm more afraid of watching you break than I am of what you might do to me. His eyes went dark. Dangerous. And the choice crystallized. I was acutely aware of everything in that moment. The way my uniform, simple black dress, white apron, sensible flats, marked me as someone who existed to serve. The way my hair was pulled back in a bun so tight it made my temples ache, not a single strand out of place because that's what was expected. Professional. Invisible. Controlled. But my heart was racing so fast I was sure he could hear it. Dominic Ravel stood over me like a storm given human form. 6'2" of barely restrained power, all broad shoulders and sharp angles in that perfectly tailored suit. His presence filled the entire doorway, blocking out the dim light from the hallway behind him. He was all breadth and height and controlled danger. And I was Wait. His hand dropped from the doorframe. What are you doing? My fingers were already inside my pocket, touching the folded edge of the photograph. But I stopped. Looked up at him. Answering your question. I said quietly. I didn't ask you a question. You did. I pulled my hand back out, empty. Not yet. You asked why I'm not running. Something shifted in his expression. The restrained authority cracked just a little more, revealing the man underneath. The one who'd just been eviscerated by his own wife's contempt. Most people run from me, Miss Carter. They should. I've given them plenty of reasons. I'm not most people. No. His eyes searched mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. You're the maid who's been watching me fall apart for 2 years and never said a word. The accusation stung because it was true. I didn't think it was my place, sir. It's not. He leaned back against the opposite wall, putting distance between us, but his eyes never left mine. So why start now? Why follow me? Why look at me like? He stopped himself. Like what? Like you see something worth caring about. The vulnerability in those words nearly broke me. I thought about lying. About giving him some professional answer about being concerned for his well-being as his employee. About maintaining the distance that kept people like me safe. Instead, I told him the truth. Because I'm more afraid of watching you break than I am of what you might do to me. Silence fell between us. Fragile. Dangerous. Dominic stared at me like I'd just spoken a language he'd forgotten existed. His jaw worked. His hands curled into fists at his sides, then released. I watched him fight for control and lose. You don't know what you're saying. His voice was rough. Broken. You don't know what I am. What I've done. You're right. I don't know the details. I took one small step toward him. But I know what I've seen. I've seen you stand outside her door for 5 minutes trying to find the courage to knock. I've seen you pour whiskey you don't drink, because holding the glass gives you something to do with your hands. I've seen you check your phone hoping for a message that never comes. Stop. I've seen you be rejected and humiliated and treated like you're nothing by the woman who's supposed to stand beside you. And I've watched you take it because you think that's what powerful men do. They endure. They don't break. Miss Carter. But you're breaking anyway, Mr. Ravel. And I can't. My voice cracked. I can't watch it anymore and do nothing. The silence that followed was so heavy I could barely breathe. Dominic's eyes were dark pools of something dangerous and desperate. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Why do you care? Because you look at me like I'm real, I thought. Because in a house full of people who look through me, you're the only one who sees me. Because the photograph in my pocket means I'm already in this, whether I want to be or not. Because someone should, I whispered back. His control shattered. He turned away from me, braced both hands against the wall like it was the only thing holding him upright. Do you know what it's like, he said quietly, To be surrounded by people every day and still feel completely alone? I didn't answer. He wasn't really asking. I have 300 men who work for me. Politicians who owe me favors. Business partners who smile and shake my hand. A wife who shares my name and my house. His voice cracked on the last word. And I am so goddamn lonely I can't remember what it feels like to be seen. My throat tightened. I built this, he continued, gesturing vaguely at the estate around us. This empire. This life. I put on the suit every morning. I make the hard calls. I bury the people who betray me and shake hands with the ones who fear me. I wear the armor until I can't remember what I look like without it. He turned back to face me, and the rawness in his expression stole the air from my lungs. And my own wife looks at me like I'm a stranger. Like I'm something to be endured until she can escape to her separate bedroom and pretend I don't exist. Mr. Ravel. Do you know what she said to me last week? His laugh was hollow. She said I was the loneliest man she'd ever met. And she said it like it was my fault. Like I chose this. Didn't you? The question escaped before I could stop it. His eyes flashed. What? I should have backed down. Should have apologized and remembered my place. But something about this moment, this fragile, dangerous moment, demanded honesty. You chose the empire. The armor. The distance. You chose to be the man everyone fears instead of the man anyone could love. I chose survival, Miss Carter. There's a difference. Is there? I took another step closer. Or is that just what you tell yourself? For a second, I thought he might explode. Might remind me exactly who he was, and what he could do to servants who forgot their place. Instead, his shoulders sagged. Maybe you're right, he whispered. Maybe I built this prison and locked myself inside. Maybe I married a woman I didn't love because it made strategic sense. Maybe I pushed away everyone who could have cared because caring makes you weak. He looked at me then, really looked at me, with eyes that held decades of exhaustion. But what's the alternative, Nia? What happens when the armor comes off? When people see that underneath the suits and the power and the reputation, I'm just... He trailed off. Just what? Just a man who wants someone to come home to. Someone who looks at him like he matters. Someone who doesn't flinch when he walks in the room. The confession hung between us like a prayer. I see you, I said softly. I've always seen you. His breath caught. You shouldn't. It's dangerous. I know. If anyone found out, they won't. Nia. My name sounded broken in his mouth. What are you doing to me? Saving you, I thought. Or destroying us both. The photograph in my pocket burned. It was time. I checked my watch. 11:47 p.m. The 30 minutes were up. My shift had ended. I should have been in my room by now, door locked, pretending this conversation never happened. Instead, I reached into my pocket. What I'm doing, I said quietly, is making a choice. Dominic's eyes narrowed. What choice? My fingers closed around the folded photograph. It felt like touching fire. 3 days ago, I was cleaning Margot's office. She'd left in a hurry for lunch, didn't lock her desk drawer like she usually does. I pulled the photograph out slowly, keeping it folded. I found this tucked under some files. Nia. His voice dropped into something dangerous. What did you find? A choice, I repeated. Between staying invisible and letting you be destroyed from the inside out, or stepping forward and burning down everything we both know. I could see his mind working, see him calculating what this could mean. The Mafia boss was back, sharp and focused, but the broken man was still there underneath. Show me. My hand was shaking as I held out the photograph. He took it, our fingers brushing for half a second. A shock of contact that made my breath catch. He unfolded it. The change in him was immediate and terrifying. Every muscle in his body went rigid. His jaw locked. The photograph crumpled slightly in his grip as his hands clenched into fists. When he looked up at me, his eyes were no longer storm gray. They were black with fury. Where did you get this? Not a question. A command. Her desk drawer. Bottom left. Under the quarterly expense reports. The photograph showed Margot and Vincent Cross standing outside a warehouse. The same warehouse that had burned down last month, taking 3 of Dominic's shipments and 2 of his men with it. They were shaking hands, smiling, like old friends, like conspirators, like the betrayal had been planned all along. How long have you had this? His voice was lethal. 3 days. 3 days. He looked at the photograph again, then back at me. Why didn't you bring this to me immediately? Because I was afraid. Of me. Of what it would mean. I met his eyes, refusing to look away even though everything in me screamed to run. If I gave you that photograph, I stopped being the invisible maid. I became someone who knew your secrets. Someone who chose sides. Someone who could be a threat. And now I've decided I'm more afraid of watching you lose everything to the woman who's supposed to love you than I am of what happens to me after this. Dominic stared at me for a long moment. The silence stretched between us, taut as a wire about to snap. Then he did something I never expected. He reached out and cupped my face with his free hand. Gentle, reverent, like I was something precious instead of disposable. Do you understand what you've just done, Nia? Yes, sir. You've started a war. I knew. God help me, I knew. But watching him look at me like I'd just handed him salvation instead of destruction? I'd do it again. It's not just the warehouse, I whispered. Dominic's hand was still cupping my face, his thumb barely brushing my cheekbone. But at my words, he went absolutely still. What? The warehouse fire wasn't the first time. I forced myself to keep talking even though every instinct screamed at me to stop. I've been watching, listening, putting pieces together for months without even realizing what I was seeing. His hand dropped. The Mafia boss took over completely now, cold, calculating, lethal. Tell me everything. The shipment that went missing in October. The one you thought was hijacked by Cross's people. My voice was steadier now. Margot had a phone call that morning. I heard her in the study telling someone the route and timing. She used your shipping codes. His jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. The meeting in Chicago last month. The one where the deal fell through at the last minute, because someone leaked your offer to the competition. Margot. She was on the phone to Cross 30 minutes before you left for the airport. I was changing the sheets in her room. She thought I couldn't hear. Dominic turned away from me, the photograph still clutched in his fist. I watched his shoulders rise and fall with carefully controlled breaths. When he spoke, his voice was ice. How long has this been going on? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. 6 months. He laughed, a sound so dark and hollow it made my skin crawl. I've been sleeping under the same roof as the woman who's been systematically destroying everything I've built for 6 months. Yes, sir. He spun back to face me. Why? Why would she do this? The alliance between our families is over, I finished quietly. The Locks don't need you anymore. Cross offered them a better deal. More territory. More power. All they had to do was feed him information until your empire collapsed from the inside. I watched the realization hit him like a physical blow. She was never going to stay. His voice was hollow. This marriage was just a long con. Yes. The silence that followed was terrifying. Dominic stood perfectly still. But I could see the rage building behind his eyes. The kind of rage that toppled empires and buried enemies. Then slowly his expression changed. The broken man disappeared. The Mafia boss who'd built an empire on blood and strategy took his place. When he looked at me, his eyes were sharp as blades. You just handed me the gun, Miss Carter. My heart hammered. Sir. This photograph. Your testimony about what you've heard. The timeline of every leak and betrayal. A dangerous smile curved his lips. You just gave me everything I need to destroy Margot Locke and Vincent Cross. To dismantle their alliance and rebuild my empire stronger than before. He stepped closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. The invisible Maid just became the most valuable weapon I have. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt powerful. What happens now? I whispered. His smile turned lethal. Now we go to war. Dominic didn't move for a long moment. Just stood there in the doorway between our two worlds, holding the evidence of his wife's betrayal, looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Do you know what you've done? he asked quietly. Started a war. You said. No. He shook his head. You ended one. The war I've been fighting alone for 6 years, pretending my marriage was salvageable. Pretending that coldness and contempt were just the price of power. He looked down at the photograph, then back at me. You destroyed the lie, Nia. And in doing so, you saved me from drowning in it. My throat tightened. I didn't do it to save you, sir. Then why? Because you deserve to know the truth. Because watching someone be betrayed by the person they trust most is. I trailed off, searching for the right words. It's a different kind of violence. And I couldn't be invisible to it anymore. Something shifted in his expression. The armor cracked wider. Everyone in my life wants something from me, he said softly. Power. Money. Protection. Even Margot. She wanted the Ravel name, the status, the access. But you. He stepped closer. What do you want, Nia Carter? The question hung between us, heavy with possibility and danger. I could have said nothing. Could have played it safe and kept my distance. Instead, I told him the truth. I want you to stop being lonely. His breath caught. That's all. His voice was rough. You just handed me the weapon to destroy my enemies and rebuild my empire. And all you want is for me to not be lonely? Yes. Why? Because I know what it's like. The confession escaped before I could stop it. To be in a room full of people and feel invisible. To watch everyone around you live their lives while you just exist in the margins. You're the Mafia boss and I'm the maid, but we're both just alone, he finished. Yes. Dominic reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm, calloused, steady. The touch sent electricity up my arm. I need someone I can trust, he said quietly. In the next few days, I'm going to dismantle everything Margot and Cross built. It's going to be brutal. Dangerous. People will die. My heart raced. I know. I can't have you in the servants' quarters anymore. Can't have you vulnerable where Margot or her people can get to you. What are you saying? His eyes met mine, storm gray and intense and filled with something that looked dangerously close to hope. I'm saying the choice you made tonight didn't just destroy my marriage, Nia. It destroyed the entire foundation of how I've been living. Alone. Armored. Trusting no one. He squeezed my hand. And now I'm making a choice. To build something new. Something real. He paused. With the only person who's ever seen me and stayed. The maid and the Mafia boss, standing at the threshold between two worlds. I squeezed back. Then let's build it together.